This is Reality Dispatch, written by Jim Mintz.
I used to watch the house on the horizon when I worked as a driver, taking folks out to the airport. It glistened in the sunset and shimmered in the sunrise. I'd get calls at all times of the day and night, and my route never failed to pass the abode. 150 years old at least, but grand, so mightily did it stand on the hill. One time, I got bored and curious. I started looking up online to see if there was any information about its history. Who built it, and what was it used for? I thought it must have been a place where the king or queen would stay whenever they were in town, but now it had dilapidated and decayed. Not much had been revealed online. A few articles on its heritage listing, but from what I could gather, it had been abandoned for a long time. When I knew there hadn't been any human life that had set foot in the place in many years, that's when the idea came to me. "You want to break in?" Jeff said incredulously. "Yes, I want to break in," I said. "It's a victimless crime. There hasn't been a foot that set foot in that old place in over 80 years. "How do you know?" he said, still not believing that I was being serious. We were sharing beers at the pub while he placed bets on the horses. "I just know. So what happens if we break a window? I climb inside, and there's a family of 5 sleeping in their bed. They turn on the lights. The dad comes in with a baseball bat." He chugged his beverage. "There won't be," I said. He shook his head. It was a week later that I managed to gather enough of an argument to convince him to join me. "There could be untapped riches," I said. I remember he shook his head on that occasion too, but he said yes. He said he saw the house on the horizon in the sunset as he drove back from the aqueduct, and something about it called out to him. He saw the potential just as I did. The plan was to scope the property on the Wednesday and then return the same time, same day, but a fortnight later, so as not to draw suspicion. On our recon mission, we saw it up close and clear for the first time. There was no other house that surrounded its boundaries, and this encouraged me. "Why wait a fortnight?" Jeff suggested. "It's clear there is no one taking care of this place. No one around." "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "I'm suggesting I go back to my truck, grab some tools, and we scope the place out from the inside right now." I didn't have a valid reason to argue. I followed him down to his truck, and he handed me a chainsaw while he picked up a sledgehammer. We walked the long, dilapidated driveway back up to the Victorian underpass that lined the enchanting wood-lined doors with their stained glass panels. I could just make out the petals of the roses as they presented on the frosting when Jeff took his giant hammer to them and followed through with a mighty swing, almost taking the door off in half. "Jesus, you weren't kidding," I said. He wasn't listening. He continued swinging until we had an opening wide enough. He was more eager than I was. He strolled through like he owned the joint, walking from room to room, looking for anything that would be of value. I lost him rather quickly. "Jeff," I called out. The place was dark. We should have brought flashlights. "Jeff," I yelled again. No reply. "Jeff," I screamed. "Who's Jeff?" came a voice from the darkness. "Jeff is with us now," came another. My pulse pumped. My breath sucked out of my chest. I was frozen still. I couldn't move even if I tried. "Is this another? So soon?" the voices continued. I felt a coldness pass through me like a cold drink running through my veins. "This one is not as stoic," they said, "but his soul is worth the price," came another. "Should we eat the soul or enslave it within the boundary?" one asked. "We need another guard on the north wing after Sandringham left us for purgatory." I swallowed. "Where's Jeff?" I whispered to the voices. "He's speaking to us," one replied. "That means he can hear us." "This one must have the gift. We cannot consume his soul. He must be our advocate," another said. "We need him to keep our interest in this place." "To stop the demolition," they said in unison. "The house must stand otherwise. We will fall." "Someone tell him." The darkness that had consumed the room I was standing in shimmered and flickered, and a gray figure dressed in Victorian attire stood before me. He was transparent, and I knew straight away what it was. "You're one of the rare breeds that can withstand an audience of our kind," he said in the most eloquent of accents. We cannot survive in the next level of the afterlife that awaits us if this place does not continue to stand in its current fashion, he continued. I tried to talk, tried to respond in some capacity. I could only swallow. You will be our advocate. You will seek out legal representation to allow our interests to be maintained in this place. You will do this by speaking to the current owner, a Mr. Haley. I will summon him to this place in his dreams, and he will grant you power of attorney, the entity continued. I was all I could muster. Don't speak. This isn't a negotiation. It's a declaration. To prove our seriousness, you will join your acquaintance Jeff in the afterlife in the first fire pit of hell for one evening. You will see firsthand what it's like to betray a declaration from our kind. The lights dimmed to a darkness unlike any I had ever experienced. I braced myself for the entrance of the unknown. The dread in my heart was immeasurable. I waited for it to consume me. The loneliness, the despair, the resignation of my fate, all fluctuated in my heart as I waited for the entrance into the pit. Then the sun rose and the house came into view. A knock at the door jolted me into consciousness. I was still standing in the middle of the hallway where the entity had engaged me the night before. I walked to the back door and opened it for the one who had been knocking. An elderly man with a cane stood there and eyed me up and down. You, Andrew? He asked me in a toothless drawl. Yeah, I said. I had a nightmare about you.
For more stories of fact-based fiction, head to jimmins.substack.com.